Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program will begin in 15 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats and silence your cell phones. Our program will begin in 5 minutes. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chair of the Alumni Real Estate Network, Martin Nguyen.
Good evening, and thank you all for joining us tonight. As an alum of the USC Price School of Public Policy and chair of the Alumni Real Estate Network, I am thrilled to welcome you all to this evening's program, Women in Commercial Real Estate, Leading the Transformation of Los Angeles. Tonight is the first in-person signature event that we have had since January 22nd, 2020. That's 791 days. Isn't it great to be back together with Trojans? Shortly, we're going to hear not only from a panel of prominent real estate trailblazers, but also young alumni in the field who will share their own perspectives in commercial real estate. I cannot think of a better reason to bring us back together, being empowered by the stories of our Trojan alumni. So whether you are here to inspire or be inspired, we hope that you leave tonight with the spark to carry you along on your individual journeys. Before I introduce our moderator for this evening, I would like to welcome a few special guests. City of Los Angeles Public Works Commissioner Teresa Viejas, and the director of the USC Lusk Center for Real Estate, Dr. Richard Green. Now I'd like to acknowledge and thank our partners for tonight's event, the USC Sol Price School of Public Policy and the USC Alumni Real Estate Network. We hope you all stay and network afterwards to learn more about how to get involved with each organization, including following us on social media for information on upcoming events. And now, it's my privilege to welcome all our speakers as I introduce our moderator for tonight's program. Our moderator for tonight's program is Nicole Kukluk-Waldman. She is the founder of Collaborate. She advocates for businesses to ensure the best results for her clients, from regulatory challenges to development projects. Nicole specializes in comprehensive advocacy approach and is known for integrating community outreach, communication with elected officials and community leaders, and honesty, backed up by evidentiary support to ensure a positive and desired result. Prior to founding Collaborate, Nicole practiced land use law at major law firms in Los Angeles. Her practice includes management and entitlement of highly visible and controversial development projects, plan approvals, modifications, and compliance with existing entitlements, strategic advice, managing teams of consultants on large-scale land use projects, and California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, compliance and review. Nicole graduated from the University of California, Berkeley, and graduated from Georgetown University Law Center in Washington, D.C. She is a lecturer here at the University of Southern California, where she teaches planning law and entitlement at the Sol Price School of Public Policy and the Lusk Center for Real Estate. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a warm welcome for Nicole Kukluk-Waldman.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to introduce our panel. So I'm going to let them start with self-introductions. So I'm going to start with Claire right here, and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I always do this for Sonia in particular because she always tries to introduce me as a Trojan. And I said, being a Trojan is a life choice. I actually chose to be a Bruin who went to graduate school at USC. So I'm Claire DeBreer. I'm a native Angelino. I have been a developer in Los Angeles for over 30 years. I always say, like, even in the worst of things are happening, which we've all been in the worst of things, in the worst of times, I'd still rather be doing this than anything else in the entire world. I've had the great good fortune to work for a legendary visionary in this field, Wayne Rakovich, and I ran his company for 26 years. I retired, which was also awesome. And then I accidentally took another job, and I am now running the commercial real estate regional office for Skanska, which is a 130-year-old Swedish global company, depending on who you ask. If you ask my U.S. building or U.S. civil partners, they will say it's a construction company and a development company. If you ask anybody on my team, we're a development company that happens to have a little construction division. And we really focus on sustainability and building things with thought and care for the communities in which we build them. And I think everybody here on this table is a great example of exactly the same thing. So I'm pleased to be here with everybody.
Next, we have Nadine.
Hi, I'm Nadine Watt. I've never heard this lifestyle choice about being a Trojan or not. I am a third-generation Trojan, but I also came here for graduate school, and my undergraduate is from Georgetown University. So I guess a little.
I'm a second-generation Trojan.
Oh, okay.
Both my parents went too. That was the life choice.
Okay. Well, it was in your blood.
I was a convert.
So I am the third generation of a family of real estate developers. Our company is over 75 years old. It was started by my grandfather, Ray Watt, who was also a visionary and a legend in his time. And I am privileged to be following in his footsteps. My degree at USC is actually from cinematic arts. And so there was a little more of a journey for me to get into the family business and into real estate development, and I'm sure we'll get into that later. But I'm thrilled to be here talking to you guys and talking to the next generation, and look forward to connecting more.
Thank you. Robin?
So I am a first-generation Trojan, but a lifetimer of USC. So I grew up in this neighborhood, and I was just telling someone earlier today, my brothers did the Troy Camp thing here on campus. My brother and I went to the sleepaway Troy Camp in San Bernardino Mountains. So it is a neighborhood that I'm quite familiar with. But along with myself, I have my undergraduate degree and graduate degree in public administration, which predates the policy school, so it didn't have a fancy name back then. And I have two sisters, both of whom, one has her undergraduate degree here. My younger sister did Stanford undergrad and USC graduate. And of my 8 siblings, I think all of us either went to school here at one point in time or worked here at one point in time. My mom was a department secretary, so you can tell this long history of being part of the Trojan family. And my daughter did apply to school here, if anyone's out there that's part of admission. No, we're still waiting on her letter.
And we're waiting on my daughter's letter as well, hopefully. Friday.
So, but I run the Abode Communities. We are a nonprofit affordable housing developer, but because of my degree, I actually went through the public sector, which led me to affordable housing and real estate development. So worked for the county for many years, and when Tom Bradley was mayor, worked on his economic development team. But I've been in my role as president and CEO of Abode Community for the past 26 years, and I'll talk more about the work that we do this evening. So thank you.
Next, we have Emily.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Mondonado. I'm also a second-generation Trojan. Both my parents went here and met here, so it was their choice for me to go there, but in my opinion, it's the best choice they could have made, so definitely great with that. I majored in the Bachelor of Real Estate Development and then graduated in 2020. I started as a development analyst at Link Logistics Real Estate. Link is Blackstone's U.S. industrial operating platform. Link owns over 400 million square feet of industrial space in the U.S. and is the largest owner, operator, and developer with developments in all major markets. I specifically work on the investments acquisitions team, underwriting all of our new potential acquisitions, and then also help assist and manage our $7.5 billion development portfolio. So I actually attended this event as an undergrad not too long ago, and I left feeling very encouraged and excited to start my career in industrial real estate as a woman. And I definitely hope that some of my new grad experience and advice that I can share tonight will help you leave here feeling the same.
And last but certainly not least, Melissa.
Hi everyone, my name is Melissa Shem. I graduated from USC in 2018. I was a first generation Trojan, which seems to be something we're sharing this evening. And I had an amazing experience in also the Bachelor of Science Real Estate Development program. And since then, I worked at Hines in their Orange County office doing development, acquisitions, entitlement. I worked there for about 3 years. And then just recently, I transitioned over to Bentall Green Oak, where I work on the transactions team. Bentall Green Oak is a $70 billion investment manager, and I work on acquisitions, transactions, kind of across all product types and West Coast.
Thank you. I love that we have such a nice spread of experience here, from construction to operation to development. So I'm really excited to start asking some questions. I think because we haven't been around anybody in a couple years, I think it's a great way to start. What is the biggest change you're seeing right now in your space, do you think? And what are you learning from that? You want to start with Clara?
The one thing I figured out was that we work much better when we work together, and I think in person, at least in our company, and I think that the moments that you have when you can learn something by overhearing another conversation, or by just being in the room, where I can say to somebody, hey, why don't you sit in on this meeting and learn something about whatever it is that we're talking about. I think those moments are really lost, and the communication skills and the culture building you cannot do if you're not in person, which as an office developer makes me really, really happy because I think there's going to continue to be a need for places for people to work and to come together. And it may be different, but the beauty of how we build buildings is you can have such flexibility within the spaces. They can be all private offices, they could be all bench seating, they could be all living room spaces. It's not going to change how we build the buildings, and it's not going to change people's need for them. And I think that for me was a really surprising thing. I didn't realize how important being in person and team building is until you sort of got that taken away.
Absolutely. How about you, Nadine?
I think you can keep a good company good with work from home, but I think it's impossible to make a good company great with work from home, especially in real estate. Real estate is a bit of a dinosaur. It's not tech. It's not. It's something that I think you need to collaborate. I think you need to have those moments together. I think, especially in real estate, you need a mentor. You need someone who can grow you, who can teach you, who can collaborate with you, who can hold your hand and walk you through the next step. This real estate is not something that you can learn in a bubble. And as a developer, there's so many problems that arise, and I'm so grateful that I had my grandfather for 10 years that I was in the business to impart a lot of that legacy wisdom that you're not going to get if you're not together and connecting, building culture, building a great company, and mentoring the next generation. And I've definitely learned that over the last 2 years.
Awesome. Robin?
Yes, I want to reflect on this both coming into the pandemic 2 years ago and now coming out, which part of it was sort of reinforcing what I knew. So I have been incredibly amazed by how productive my team has been during the last 2 years. You know, that week when we were trying to decide, do we go remote? If not, my whole thing was like, if we go remote, no one's going to work. No, but like, how do you work collaboratively? How do you work in team? How do you keep projects going through the process if you're not connected to one another on a regular basis? And it has been amazing. We probably have been busier in the last 2 years than we were prior to coming into the pandemic. Our pipeline now of 20 projects, it's never been that high. So this ability for the organization to perform and perform well during the pandemic was really great. But all of the things that you've just heard today, I see it now that we're back in the office. People are excited about being back together, connecting with one another, being able to turn to their colleague. Our development group is intentionally set up in an open space so that project managers can hear and learn from one another. We have an architectural studio. It is a place where architects need to collaborate and work together. So that creating culture, that collaboration, even the innovation and creativity that comes together when you're all working. So I would agree with that as well.
So Emily, and I like your thoughts, especially since you're kind of on the newer end of kind of coming in, what it feels like, what that change feels like to you, and what your observations are.
Definitely. So I started as an intern at Link, and my internship was completely remote. So it was definitely a crazy experience going into the workforce, being so detached from everyone else. And everyone else in the company had known each other, so they already had those relationships built. Whereas me going in, I had to be much more proactive about reaching out, getting to know the different people at the company, looking for new opportunities to work on different projects. And I think that was a huge struggle during my internship. And it really forced me to kind of get out of my shell a little bit and reach out to people a lot more. Now transitioning into the office full time, it's really so valuable being in person with people. It's made my growth accelerate so much faster. Being able to look over to someone else's desk and ask them a quick question or whatever the situation may be. And just like Nadine mentioned, having mentors is so important. And I think it's much, much easier to build those relationships in person, be able to ask someone to grab lunch. And also it's just so much more enjoyable to get to come into the office and see people and chat about personal stuff too. And so I think overall it's been a great experience kind of knowing what each felt like, and it really encourages us to want to come into the office every single day. So definitely grateful that we're in that situation now.
And Melissa, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think one thing I learned over the past few years was just how important people are to real estate. You don't really realize it until you're running around touring a bunch of empty office buildings. And it's just so much harder to get people excited about those types of investments when, it's like, what's the actual physical occupancy of this building when nobody's coming into work? And so I think it's just something to take into account when we're looking at developments or investments and how people are actually going to use those buildings.
Oh, please.
I forgot one thing, which is what's missing a lot when you're not in person is the celebration of a success and that feeling of a party, of that let's all celebrate something together. And that to me was one of the things that was truly missing in 2 years of Zooms and work from home, was the celebrations.
Absolutely, some sort of cohesion and joint success. So I'm going to work my way back this time. So I wanted to kind of get on that mentorship question a little bit. So I wanted to ask you, I'll start with you, Melissa. What do you think makes what has been a good example of mentorship, and how have you found good mentorship in this space?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to find really great mentors. And the best way to do it, and from my experience, is just through very organic relationships, spending time at events like this, meeting other people that have been in your shoes before and can help you understand kind of where, point B is, where you're going next. And I think it's really hard to make those relationships and connections if you're not truly like connecting with that person on a personal level too. So I think just being yourself and finding people that relate to you a little bit more than, the next person is kind of the best way to get started there.
Emily, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I would say the biggest thing that I felt in my mentorships that have lasted a long time is not only, what are you doing for the company, what are your responsibilities, but what are your goals, and how can we make you proceeding towards your goals with what we're giving you. And I think that's been one of the great things that I found at my company that I'm at now, is they're always checking in. Are you happy? What are you working on? What do you want to be working on? And to be giving that acknowledgement and they're interested in helping me grow in my career path, I think is really important. And also finding mentors outside of the company you're at is really important too. when I was in undergrad, I would reach out probably twice a week to have coffee chats with different professionals in the industry. And that's how I really got a sense of what I was interested in doing from the start. And I think those are really great ways to build relationships. And more often than not, you'll realize that you'll meet up with those people later on in your careers and you'll be working with them on different deals. And it's really exciting. And definitely the community we have here in the real estate industry is so tight and everyone knows each other, and having those mentors to introduce you to different people is really impactful in a career, especially early on. So definitely reach out and get to know as many people as you can as undergrads, graduates, and beyond.
Absolutely. I think you learn a lot that way too, what you like and you don't like, which is just as important as what you do like as what you don't. I'm going to modify that question a little bit for you, Robin. So because you and Nadine and Claire are kind of in a different space, I want to know if I'm happy to hear your thoughts on mentorship, but I also want to talk about how you build a diverse team and what that means to your organization when you are looking at bringing different folks onto your team, and kind of how you do that.
It's a really great question, and it's a great question for me where I sit. So my organization, we're a multidiscipline organization with folks with, different levels of technical competency. So we're architects, developers, property management, and we have a social service piece. So you can imagine all four of those are very, very different and require a different set of skills. And so as I looked to building our leadership team, it's really and I do this as a leader in the organization, finding folks with the best set of technical competencies, but also have the ability to manage and lead teams. And it's really hard to sometimes find those two things together. And for me, it's also people that are very committed to our work and our mission and what the organization does. And I do find that as a senior leadership team, we have very similar leadership and management styles, but there are certain members of the team that have strengths in certain areas versus the other. And part of what we do is try to build on those strengths as a team, which I think is really important. So I'm going to do my Star Trek analogy, because I do all the time, which is I was on a panel like this and someone asked about, a good book to read about management. And I said, well, I don't have a good book, but do you watch Star Trek? and it was the captains really lean on and listen to their leaders and rely on their technical competency when making decisions, but ultimately they know they are the decision makers. So it's really building, and that's a diverse team, sort of building a diversity of a team and really relying on them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Nadine, any thoughts on that?
When I started, I had come from the film business and I didn't know very much about real estate or how it worked. And so my grandfather decided that he was going to mentor me himself, but he was also going to make each one of his divisions have me for 6 months. So I had to work under each of our division heads for 6 months, including our CFO and our home builder and our asset manager and our property manager. And I really did have to start at the bottom and work my way up. So I had some great mentors during that time, including my amazing grandfather, Ray Watt. And then I also had some great mentors outside of the company, one whom was here, but I think he ditched already. But for me, creating a team, I was fortunate enough to be able to develop all of my teams. A lot of those people that had mentored me left during my tenure, and I got to bring in my own teams. And 5 out of 7 of my executives are all women that I feel like I have brought in, mentored, grown, because my philosophy was more, there's room on the bus for everybody. There's room, rising tide carries all boats. And so, bring everybody on board. And because a lot of doors were opened for me as a woman, I felt it was my obligation to open doors for, the people coming up underneath me.
Thank you. And Claire?
I think there's a huge value when you have people who think differently all attacking the problem the same way. And as everybody here has said, there's a great collaboration in our business, and we need to collaborate. And so if that diversity comes in not just like male, female, or race related, it's also diversity of education, diversity of experiences, diversity of age. Like you want to have the young developers on your team as much as you want to have the old salty ones like Richard. So it's really important to have that diversity of thought, because it makes for much better solutions. And Gabrielle Bullock, I'll never forget, came and spoke to our advisory board at ULI's, at our district council advisory board, and she talked about the need to have intentionality. And I think that's exactly what Nadine is saying. If you make the intention that you're going to grow diversity on your team, regardless of how what diversity means to you, if you have that intention, you will make different choices. And I think it's really important to have that intentionality and have that thought and change what you're doing. Like, it's really easy for me, if I have an opening, to call Sonia and say, like, who's your smartest analyst, graduating from the MMed program this year? Give me his resume, right? That would be my standard. That's not going to get you diversity. And not that you don't have awesome people of everybody, of every kind, but we now have a totally different way of posting our jobs and thinking about how we're doing things. I just want to do one thing on the mentoring.
Go for it.
I think that the best thing you can possibly do as anybody in real estate is to have mentors. I still have mentors. And there is something kind of magical when you get thrust with people like who you don't necessarily know. So I appreciate finding people that you connect with, but I think there's something really good that happens when you take advantage of like the USC mentoring program, or even like the ULI Partnership Forum. That's how I met Martin. And so there's a lot of really great things that happen when you open yourself up to meeting new people and people who you wouldn't necessarily meet. I have a mentee right now at Skanska who is a project engineer at our regional connector project in downtown, and she's building this amazing project. But I can still mentor her in how she talks, wants to express that she wants a bigger job. And I was like, well, let's walk through how that works. And so there's a lot of value in taking advantage of the organizations that have mentoring programs. I think that's really important as well. And I've been so enriched by it as being a mentor. It's great.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think one of the points on diversity is very well taken, especially when you're looking at different backgrounds, because the fact is even if you're in the real estate space, and that can be very monolithic, you're dealing with all different other spaces, right? You're dealing with construction teams, you're dealing with city teams, you're dealing with folks who work in government, folks who work in different kinds of spaces, and I think that diversity really does deliver. I also think mentorship is critically important. I think it's really important to know when you have a good mentor and be clear on that. And then part of the way you do that is you ask, and you also, you go out and you may fail a couple times. You may meet some people it doesn't click with, but you have to keep going, right? You have to just kind of put your head down and keep trying, and it's always out there. So I want to ask, if this is kind of a fun question, I want you to give us an example of a problem you solved and how you solved it, because I think that's going to bring a lot of the stuff we're talking about together. So I'll give you a second here. I see Claire thinking. So why don't I skip around? I was going to say, and if you want to give an example of something around here, so maybe in LA where someone can visualize the building or the space while they're doing it, that would be awesome too. I see Robin nodding. You ready? I'm going to call out. I'm going to warm call you. They call it warm call. You can say no.
I actually feel like all of our developments are these major puzzles to solve. So I'm just trying to pick one. But I thought about the one that's here closest to USC, and it's not only a problem solving, but it's one of those projects that were near and dear to me from my own life experience and growing up in this neighborhood. So we purchased the Rolling Curtains Garden. I'm trying to get my direction here. So Exposition in Vermont, 48-unit garden-style apartment. Unfortunately, the original, well, I guess he was probably the second owner of the property, the land use covenants had expired, so it was no longer considered affordable. That owner starts systematically evicting the family so that he could tear the property down and build student housing. An organizing group here in South LA came in and helped organize the tenants there, and then they asked us to join them to acquire the property and actually save it as a community asset. And this group is a community land trust. So we worked with that community land trust to ultimately acquire the property. It was very expensive in 2008, and we were incredibly lucky to get a boutique loan from Wells Fargo to actually acquire the property. But it was one of those acquisitions, too. I can remember my project review committee with my board, and Gail Lanoy, who worked for Bank of America, was like, we absolutely have to buy this piece of property. I mean, it just meant so much for the community. But we ultimately purchased it. We went through this amazing community engagement process that was funded by a couple of foundations, where we worked with the residents in the property, stakeholders in the communities, to really talk about what quality, equitable TLD looks like. We took them on field trips to go see other projects. We did design charrettes with them to, share with them different types of design, and ultimately they designed what is there now. So we tore down 48 units, garden-style apartment. We were able to build a 140-unit, probably 4-story apartment building with a healthcare clinic on the ground floor. It is probably one of the earlier projects in the city of LA where we only had to do parking like 0.5 to 1, which at that time was pretty amazing. It is probably the most complex ownership structure on a ground lease with 5 subdivisions, because we had to parcel off each of the components because they were all financed differently, and 3 different capital stacks, all of which had multiple funding sources. So it was just it was a developer's dream, but it's not. It's like, we are never going to replicate this again. But it's amazing, and you go there now, and it's just such a wonderful, wonderful project. And at our opening, when Mom talked about how she and her girls, she'd left a domestic violence situation, and she and her girls were living on the street, and she just so happened to walk by the apartment building and see these people in line to submit applications, and she submitted an application, got a lottery number, and ultimately moved in off the street. So it's just really amazing. And then I'll just tell my rock star story. Sorry. So
I want to hear it.
So 2 years ago, I brought my daughter back from homecoming, and we parked over there. We were walking over to campus, and this woman, she walked past me, and she turned around. She goes, "Are you Robin Hughes?" I'm like, I got recognized on the street. I'm like, yes. It turns out she was one of our tenants, but it was like one of those really cool moments. It's like, real estate housers never get recognized on the street. But it's really great. So it's a beautiful building, just a wonderful asset that we know will just remain an affordable asset for a community that has experienced so much gentrification. So just very complex, but turned out
a lot
to
of
be
moving
really great.
pieces,
Yeah.
but you figured it out. So
Exactly.
Claire has one, so it came to her.
So, but it's not. It's one that's in process. It's not 100% solved yet. But we have this project in the Arts District. We bought a piece of land. We want to build an office building on it, and we did an internal visioning session about what we wanted this to be and what our goals were. And our number one goal was we wanted it to be a truly net zero building, which is not an easy thing to do by any stretch. Not just buying a ton of, not just buying a ton of credits, but like really doing the things that you need to do to make it net zero. So that was number one goal. Number two goal is it had to look really cool and be super technologically advanced. And the number three goal was we wanted to, and this is sort of tied to both of the first two, which was we wanted to have some sort of passively conditioned indoor-outdoor space, because one of the things we found that people loved from this working at home experience was the ability to go outside whenever they wanted to. Now, I'm on the 68th floor of the Library Tower building. That is virtually, it takes me like 15 minutes to get down to the street level.
Elevator commute, it's real.
Yeah, it's
real.
it's so that idea of being able to just have that opportunity to throw your laptop on a desk outside and sit outside without having glare or, birds. You want to hear the birds, but you don't want them.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So we ended up going through and hiring. We had a 16-team actually an RFC process, which was a request for collaboration. It's a Skanska thing, and then we narrowed that down to 3, and we did a competition for 3. Perkins and Will ended up getting the job, and they designed this incredible building. It has this purpley pink ribbony scrim that's like exactly at the right depth and height to minimize heat and glare, but to maximize light in the building. I mean, it's this amazing, like the kind of building that you're like, yes. And it came in about $100 million more than my budget. So that was not great. That would be the challenge.
Then VE comes in, and here we are.
But what we did was we said, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to figure out like what are our absolute goals, and that absolute number 1 goal did not change. We want this to be a net zero building. The number 2 goal did not change. Well, the number 2 goal was this concept of design, and we're like, that scrim on the outside of the building is like, that is the bomb design thing that's going to make us charge a higher rent and sell it for a lower cap rate. Like things like that actually do impact your value. And then the third thing was this idea of this passive space, because they had designed this really incredible space that is indoor, outdoor, and yet it's covered. So you can actually walk out of your conditioned office space into unconditioned office space. And that's all it is. It's just unconditioned office space. It's open air. But it is covered. It has the same finishes. It looks the same. It just has fans instead of air conditioning. So with that sort of thought of like, here are our goals. What can we shed? We were able to shed a bunch of stuff and make a bunch of really good value management decisions.
Is that what the Swedes call it?
Yeah, that's, yeah. I think we're all just so tired of value engineering that we're like, let's come up with a different name. It'll feel different. And so we worked really collaboratively to try to solve this problem. Now we only have a $30 million cost difference, which is, that's why I'm like, can we call another contractor and make sure that you guys aren't like charging us a lot? But so we really are working on this, solving this problem by keeping our focus on what is the really important thing, and what is really driving value, and what do our customers want and expect, and how do we give that to them in an affordable way. And so that's something that we're ongoing, but through collaboration and everybody coming together. And we have our pre-con team that's been working on this project literally since we toured the property the first time, and like really having the ability to build a cohesive team that's focused on the same goal. I think that's the best way to try to get problem solved. Is you've got to have everybody, as Wayne used to say, rowing in the same direction. That was one of his favorite sayings. And so it's that idea of really having everybody buy off on like, what is the value statement? What are our goals? What is the mission of this project? And not losing sight of that.
Absolutely. Emily?
So
sorry, go ahead.
If we don't take anything away tonight, we'll have new acronyms.
Yes. Emily, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, on our development team, we're completely committed to making all of our new developments LEED certified. And so that's our really big initiative on our development platform. We have a whole environmental sustainability department within Link. And that's been something so exciting just for me to learn about. I didn't have a lot of knowledge in that going into it. And so that's been our number 1 goal, putting solar panels on all of our developments. And on the other side of that too is seeing how our small businesses of our tenants have grown during the pandemic, of how their businesses have actually accelerated due to e-commerce is really exciting. And to see their businesses grow and to see their need for more warehouse space, to see their products doing well is something that we're really excited to see on our end as well.
Melissa, any thoughts? on problem solving?
Yeah, I have a weirdly specific one. So
Perfect.
when I was at Heinz, I was working on an entitlement project, also in the Arts District. It was an office project, and we were working on the parking structure and trying to figure out, just like the best way to coordinate and align it with the rest of the building. And we got pretty far. We were probably like 90% of the way done with the parking structure and the layout. And I was meeting with our traffic engineers, and they kind of explained to me that, you might have to like reach out a little bit to put your parking ticket in the little slot thing. And I was like, no, that's so annoying. Like, I don't know about you guys, but that just drives me insane. Every time I go to a parking structure and I have to like reach out, put my thing in the slot, like, and so I was like, okay, well, let's figure out a way to fix this. And so we, I think it's the kind of the theme, like we collaborated, we spent a lot of time, too much time, but we came to a solution, and although I'm not there anymore, hopefully it gets implemented.
But those small details really matter. I think that's the point. Those are the things you really notice and matter, and it's really important that you're there to think through those issues.
We changed where the entrance was, and it gave us a little bit more room for them to turn in.
Yeah, that's really annoying when you have to like open your door or you have to take the seatbelt off.
Roll
It's
down the
right?
window.
Not
Yes, open the
okay.
door. No.
Seriously. Please. Thank you for solving that problem. On behalf of people like me, thank you. And Nadine, do you have a thought on a kind of a challenge you faced and how you resolved it?
I would just say, as a real estate developer, every single project is a challenge that you have to overcome. There is not one project but being in a family business and having to get your family investors to buy off on a lot of your choices is a particular challenge, and consensus building. And mine also was similar, at our office building in Century City. For me, very early on, sustainability was a marker that we were trying to reach. And so trying to convince my grandfather, who for, 60 years didn't think sustainability was something that we should pursue. And our home building, president said, why would we put any, sustainable features in our houses, and so it was very early. I'll say it was in the 05 to 9, 2005 to 2000, before sustainability was something that you wanted to pursue, and to get that buy off internally, and start to prove why saving the earth was ROI in itself, not just not making money. Putting good money after bad. So for me, that was one of our greater challenges. And we did end up becoming the first LEED Platinum building in an existing office that had been built in 1980 in Century City. And it all started with water-free urinals. So we were the first building a high-rise that put in water-free urinals. And from then on, I was like, well, if we're saving all this water, what else can we do? So
Well, and it was strategic, right? And it was long term, and you had to convince the family members.
Exactly.
And I'm sure you all just didn't sit down one day and they were like, "Oh yeah, Nadine, we're all in," right? I mean,
no.
So this is our final question. We're almost out of time. So I just would love to leave with, if you were to give someone who's investing in their career in commercial real estate one piece of advice, what would it be? So I'll give you a second. Oh, see, her eyes just popped. So I'll give Claire the first, and then I'll go down the row.
I give everybody the same advice, and it's across industries. Work with people you like and respect.
Excellent advice. That's very true. Nadine?
Raise your hand. I can't tell you how many times people say, why didn't you hire me, or why didn't you? I said, you didn't ask, or you didn't, why didn't I get any applications for this internship, or why, I answer almost all my calls. I mean, I don't pick up and say, hey, it's Nadine, but I will respond to you. If you send me an email, I try to meet with you. I'm very open. So at least ask. If you don't ask, you won't get.
Absolutely. Very true. That's a very good piece of advice. Rob?
across all industries and all
Yeah.
aspects of your life.
It's true. You do have to ask. It's my husband always taught me. No one. No. They always wait for you to ask. No one's going to give you anything, and it's very true. Robin.
I have two. If that's
Great.
okay.
Absolutely.
So one is to the young undergraduates out in the audience. One of the things that I did not take advantage of as a young graduate is this USC network, especially here in Los Angeles. Did I ever go to anything like this? Did I ever, engage and, call people up just for an informational interview, things like that. So it's talked about a lot here at USC. Please take advantage of it. It is a really, really important thing as you go out into the world. And if, it doesn't have to be a mentor. It's really just being out there and knowing people, letting people know that you're genuine about this. It's not like you're trying to, be a rock star in one day. It takes time. But that you're really interested, genuinely interested in their work and what they do and how they inspire you, but really take advantage of the USC network is really important. So I didn't talk about this today, but I am actually taking on a new national role come July, and someone sent me this nice little note that said, "You're amazing." And on the back, it had a really great quote from Serena Williams that said, "Every woman's success should be an inspiration for another. We're stronger when we cheer each other on." So that would be my advice for the women.
And that is absolutely true. Mutual support is a really critical path, especially in a space that is a male-dominated industry. And now,
I also have two, and my first one would be confident in what you know and what you don't know. So definitely for young professionals, ask as many questions as you can starting off. You're not expected to know everything, and if you're in a position where you're being made felt like you have to know everything, you're probably not in a position that's going to help you grow long term. So never be afraid to ask questions, especially early on. And then also be confident in what you do know and your opinions and speaking up in different meetings. I've had many situations where I felt like I didn't speak up because I thought the person might, they know that already. They've been doing this a long time. And, maybe they do know it already, but it's important to speak out and show that you're critically thinking about a situation and that you have value to add and you're eager to add value as well. And I think that's a really important thing to do, and people really respect that. And you'd be surprised how much new information that you can bring to the table as a young professional. Also, as a second thing, I would say that there's definitely a difference between being open to trying new things and being pressured into changing who you are. And I think as a young professional starting at a new company, our first instinct is to transform ourselves into whatever culture we're joining. And, a lot of the times in the industrial real estate world, a lot of the people like to golf on the weekends. And, it's great if you want to be open and try golfing on the weekends and being open to joining stuff like that. But never feel pressured like you need to do that in order to belong in the company. And I think that's one thing that I've definitely made that distinction between in my own career. And I think it's really important to know that going in. A lot of your insecurities that you have are actually going to be the things that make you stand out and that help you bring value to the company. So those would be my two.
and Melissa, any final thoughts?
Mine is just to do what you like. And I think it's sometimes harder than it sounds to actually take the time and work on projects that are interesting to you versus what your boss is telling you to do or your investors want you to focus on. I think it comes off much, much better when you're working on something that you really like and that you think is important. And I think it's just hard to really take that time and think about what you really want to be doing. And I think it's really important.
Absolutely. And I think leading into that, from that, is that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to find out this is not the perfect place for you, but you're seeing other folks that maybe are doing something that you really want to do, or you're finding your interest area. It's okay to grow and change. You thought you were retired and then you unretired. You thought you were going to do movies. Apparently someone doesn't like golf over here, but we've all made it up here at the table. So I'd like to thank all of our speakers, our panelists. Thank you so much. It was a great joy, and we loved talking. Thank you so much, and congratulations, Robin, on your new job. We're really excited to see you really go change the world in affordable housing policy. Oh, okay, we have Q&A.
Excellent. So if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand and we'll bring the microphone. Leanne is on this side and I'm on this side, and we'll get going. So please raise your hand and we'll come to you.
Thank you, guys. This was really, really good for me to hear. This is a very specific question, which is why I kind of waited for a second. Robin, on the project you talked about with the incredibly complex financing and subplotting, how long did that take? and do you see this getting better in Los Angeles? Do you see the process being streamlined in any way, or is it just going to be really hard for a while?
Yeah. Richard, do you want to answer the second part of that question? So the project did really take a long time. It took a long time because of the a combination thing, because we did take a year to go through the community engagement process that was very intentional, but we also had to go through a pretty significant entitlement process. At the time, the city was also updating the community plan for this area, and we were doing all the subdivision work as well. So that took time as well, and I'm going to guess that took anywhere from like 12 to 12 to 14 months to go through that process. And then just because of the complexity of our financing, so for there were only actually 3 different financing structures. Each of them had multiple financing sources. So to cobble together those quarters usually takes another 24 hours. We were actually appealed on our entitlements, but that's a whole different story that just sort of kills you. So it took a much longer time than we anticipated. We experienced increase in construction costs, which means we had to do value engineering and go out and find other sources of funding. So it was very complex. I think from beginning of acquisition to ultimately completing construction probably is up to 4 if not 5 years. Yeah, which is unfortunately sometimes how long it takes to do things in the city of Los Angeles.
That's pretty consistent with my experience in the city of LA right now. In fact, in some ways, since COVID, it's gotten slower because planning has had a lot of movement, and no one's in the office anymore, and you can't kind of hound them down the way we used to. Any thoughts on that? Anybody with LA projects right now?
Actually, well, yes. I have an LA project right now, but we haven't started the entitlement project, but we are anticipating it's going to take a very long time. So
we have an LA project right now that we had received our entitlements, and on the last day, there are 3 protected trees that had been planned for and mitigated, and a coalition for the trees came out, and that will delay us at least 6 months. It's 400 units of affordable housing. We are trying to house 400 families, and someone is upset about 3 trees.
No, they're upset about.
They're not upset about the trees.
Yeah, they're not upset about the trees. They just.
Can you help me? Okay, I'm gonna come find you right now.
That's our Public Works Commissioner, Teresa Villegas over there. So,
do you know my project?
I mean, I think
it's very close by.
That's true of every. I mean, we're doing our first project. We did in Beverly Hills just because it's adjacent to the transit, and every city is having a hard time. And I don't think it's not the cities that are causing the delays and making it hard. It's all of the citizens of the city who have learned how to use our legal system to stop development because they're NIMBYs. And honestly, that's the biggest problem we have. It's not this, and I'm not just saying that because we have a commissioner here. It's not the cities. It's not the cities that are the problem. It's all the people who want to stop development, and they're using every tool that they can the wrong way.
The state has been trying to crack down with CEQA changes, but absolutely, I tell people who are like, this took 6 months, 10 years ago. I'm like, there was no Nextdoor 10 years ago. There was no Facebook where you could rally people, where there was no calling into hearings. So it really has changed the face of what we do, especially with the call-in hearings.
Well, I know it didn't help that our city council person wasn't there for a few months either. So we had no advocate or no champion.
Yeah, that can change things as well. There's been a lot of change as well there. So, Cara, some good news.
Hi, my name is Mike. Thank you for coming. And as for my question, rising rates and inflation affecting construction costs, two major headwinds to the development world. In your opinion, what are the differentiators that a successful developer should take to mitigate these risks?
lots of value management. I mean, part of it is timing, right? So every day that you don't start construction, your costs are going to escalate. Don't repeat that to my building team, because I keep telling them that that's not the case. So, so you really have to, plan for it in advance. And if you're saying, oh, my rents are going to go up conservatively 2% per year, I'm going to increase my costs 3% per year, and you think you have a nice, comfortable pro forma, don't. Assume the worst, and that way at least you have a cushion built in. So assume that construction costs are going to go up by 5%. Test it. See if your deal still works. And you kind of have to plan for the worst, because if you're like in Nadine's position where you have a project that's ready to go, you have your entitlements, you're ready to start, and then you have a 6-month delay, that 6-month delay is going to cause your pricing to go up. So, I mean, the other thing is be really smart about what you can buy today versus what you have to wait to buy. So if you can start your project and you can buy out like 10 of your major line items and your trades, do it. Like, get that certainty. So that would be my advice. What do you guys think?
So
I
was asked that same question this morning from a lender, that coming out of the pandemic with inflation and rising interest rates. And I'll start by, during my tenure with my organization, we have probably gone through, 5 different situations that were completely outside of our control, from 2008, the loss of redevelopment, tax reform, like all of these things happened. And I think as developers, part of our job is trying to anticipate the dynamics that are going on in the market and how we adapt to them. So for each of those events that occurred, they significantly impacted our business. So when there's tax reforms and the corporate rate goes down, the equity that we get for our projects go down. So how do we, either value engineer, restructure our financing, add more financing? But what we do, and I think we do well, is constantly stress testing our portfolio. Like, if this happens, what do you do? What's your plan B? I think our project managers are really tired of me saying, what's your backup plan, if this doesn't happen? So I think it's, and then we act, because that's what we do as developers. So there's always a condition in the market that's going to impact a real estate development deal, and as a strong real estate developer, you try and anticipate and adapt. So that's.
And you're going to get it wrong.
Sometimes.
Whatever you're anticipating happening, it's not going to be that. It's going to be something else. I mean, you could pre-buy your lumber. Well, yes. Lumber may not be an issue. Right. All of a sudden, interest rates jump through the roof, and you had capped it at 4%. Well, now they're 8%. I mean, who knows how. I just think you're going to be wrong, but you can put in some contingencies. No, I'm not saying give up. You can put in contingencies, and but that each line item you'll be wrong.
On the positive side, whatever you're experiencing, all your competitors are experiencing as well. So that's sort of the equalizer as well. So, and Nadine's right. The only thing we know about our budgets is that they were entirely wrong. I have never in 32 years of being a developer had a budget that actually came in at. But I've had totals that were right, but no budget has ever once come in the way we
never
planned
tell
it.
our project management staff that. Right?
No.
No, and we only value manage. We don't value engineer.
And we work for purpose, not nonprofit.
Right.
I wanted to ask, what did you study at USC, and how did the USC community help you in your real estate careers?
I got a master's in real estate development, and I will tell you, as much as it pains me to say this, the fact that both of my parents had gone to USC, I was already deeply, deeply entrenched within the Trojan family. Actually, one of my grandparents did too, so I guess I'm third generation too. I was already entrenched with those connections, and I serve on a board at UCLA, and I keep telling them, I was like, you guys have to figure out how to make that magic that USC has, because as Nadine said, there's not a time that my phone will ring or I'll get an email that I won't respond to somebody from USC, and that's sort of the clutch part of that. I think it's the value that you get from that Trojan family, because that's really what it is can help you in every way. It will open doors in almost any way you can imagine. You can have a door open through a fellow Trojan.
Nadine?
Having graduated from cinematic arts, one would not think that this was a perfect match. But, you know, I did go through a similar path. You've got to find a script and cast it, and you make the movie, and then you have to edit the movie, and then you have to sell the movie, and then you have to market the movie. It was a similar thing in real estate. You know, you have to find the property, you got to entitle the property, you got to build the property, you got to market the property, lease the property. So there was a similar conveyor belt, I guess you would say. But what was fortunate for me, not only did I have, my grandfather had, been on the board, and my father who went here, and I went here. When I was coming back into the real estate business, I went to Lusk. I went to the real estate world, that side, Marshall and Price, as opposed to going back to the entertainment side. So those doors were open to me here, even though I had graduated in something completely different. When I wanted to get back involved with the school, that network, that family, that opened the door. So that was how that fed into each other.
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, my graduate and undergraduate degrees are in public administration, so I did the public sector route for a while. But I say this because not only was I a first-generation Trojan, I was a first-generation college person. So no one in my immediate family had gone to college. So that sort of creates a very different entry, especially into a large university like USC. And it was very intimidating for me. And as I said earlier, the things that I didn't take advantage of is the networking opportunity, the connection opportunities that are available here. And I don't, and I guess I will say, because I didn't feel it as being welcoming. Like, I didn't see myself as being part of the Trojan family being here. And part of that was me, and I have to take some responsibility for that. So I do say this to the student of colors: you've earned your place here at USC. You are part of this university, and take advantage of everything there is to be out there. And yes, you got to prove yourself, but you know what? You've done that by being here. So I will have to say that I didn't take advantage of what USC could have provided for me early in my career. I think since that time, since I've grown more confident in me and my career and what I've done, I've definitely taken advantage of the relationships here at the university. I will say that my degree was free because my mom worked here and I got tuition remission.
Love it.
So that was the biggest thing. I didn't leave with college debt.
Well done. Emily?
I would definitely say the most valuable thing that I've found in all of my classes were my professors were very successful in this industry. And it was really exciting to see how they told us about all of their experiences. We learned from their case studies, and we got that firsthand experience from all the projects they learned on. And it wasn't just opening a book, memorizing for a test or a quiz. We were learning about real problems, real projects, and how to find solutions for that. One specific capstone class, my professor is here today, and we did a project up in San Francisco, and we had the developer speak to our class, and for our capstone project we put together what we thought we could build there. And I just think that is the coolest kind of critical thinking course that you could possibly do, and to have professors that are just so successful, and having that is really incredible. And then also with our classes, I actually transferred into USC, and so a big, scary thing of mine was, am I going to meet friends quick enough? Who am I going to, connect with? A lot of the real estate classes, you transfer into all of your different classes together, and it's a progression, and you build those relationships. My very, very best friends are all from my real estate classes, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of deals that we'll be doing together in the future, but it really is such a tight-knit family, and it's incredible to see how far we've come from, starting in our first class to now we're in real positions, working on real jobs, and it's really exciting, and it's something that you you should know every single person in one of your classes because you'll see them time and time again, and it's really special.
Melissa?
So I did the real estate development program undergrad, and I think the most impactful thing for me was when I graduated and realized that I could actually do the job that I was hired for. Like I had actually learned those skills, and some of my counterparts at the company I was working at didn't necessarily have those. So it's just a huge advantage for, I think, the younger people in this room. Like when you graduate, you'll be able to hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think I'd like to add that is one of the biggest assets of this program. My students always joke. Sometimes I had classes where they would say, oh, there's happy hour after class. And I'd be like, you need to go to happy hour. And they'd think I was kidding. And I was like, no, you really need to go to happy hour. The other thing I will add is I'm an adjunct professor here. I got this job by knowing a lot of people. Do you know how often I sit in office hours by myself, sitting there sad? You know, seriously, people, I do it at faculty club, and I'm like, I'll buy you a drink. Nobody comes. I know a lot of people. If you don't know where to start with your professors. We all know a lot of people. This is an incredibly small town for as big as it is, and you have access to these people. Call us. I have students who have called me and bounced ideas off me. I have students who have called me and asked me if I know people, but you have those resources here, so use them. We're all sitting at office hours very sad. We have to do it. We're waiting for you. And with that, I was told that's our final question. Again, I'd like to thank all of our panelists. Thank you. And nobody comes to my office hours. It's very depressing. Mike's going to close us out here.
Wasn't that a great discussion? All right. I wanted to thank everyone again for coming tonight. Again, it's so great to see you all here together in person. It's so great to have all our speakers here to impart their wisdom, their insight. Please stay, network. There's about 30 minutes left. Drinks and hors d'oeuvres, I believe, are still out. So wanted to thank you all once again. Thank you for coming out tonight. Please connect with us, keep in touch, and we'll hope to see you at a future USC Sol Price School of Public Policy and Alumni Real Estate Network event. Fight on.